everyone, we're Team Nepal. I'm Savyata Khadka.
I'm Praktinu Pane.
I'm Pawan Chaudhary.
I'm Kriya Sakota.
I'm Jessica Malla.
And I am Marush Rajwandari.
Let's proceed with the presentation.
First, let's talk about two-sided market and cross-site network effect. Meta operates as a two-sided market, connects user and advertisers. The platform creates value only when both groups participate. This creates a cross-site network effect. As more users join the platform, it becomes more valuable to advertisers because they can reach larger audience. Now let's look at this pricing strategy and why is it profit maximizing. First, Meta subsidizes the users. Meta keeps the platform free because a zero price attracts more users and lowers the barrier to entry. A larger user base strengthens the cross-site network effect, making the platform more attractive to advertisers. While on the other hand, advertisers are willing to pay because Meta uses user data to deliver high targeted advertisements. These ads are more effective at reaching potential customers. If Meta charged users, fewer people would join the platform, reducing its value to advertisers and lowers advertising revenue. Therefore, subsidizing users while charging advertisers maximizes profit by strengthening positive cross-site network effects. Now, let's look at the reason for higher prices and effect on market structure. First, detailed user data reduces information asymmetry. Instead of showing ads to everyone, platforms use behavioral data to target users who are most likely to buy the product, which makes advertising more effective. Second, targeted advertisements generate 2 to 3 times higher click-through rates, increasing the marginal revenue product of advertising. This raises the equilibrium price of advertising through competitive auctions. On the effect on market structure, more users create more behavioral data, improving ad targeting algorithms. Better targeting attracts more advertisers, generating higher revenue, which platform reinvests to improve their services. This cycle makes it increasingly difficult for smaller firms to compete and challenge the dominant platforms. Finally, user data is concentrated in a few firms like Meta and Google, creating an oligopoly. The top five platforms account for around 65% of global digital advertising spending, giving them significant market power. With limited competition, these firms can sustain higher advertising prices and earn persistent economic profit.
What is the real price of free social media? The social media platforms are free for users, while advertisers have to pay for advertising. Users receive welfare like entertainment, communication, information, and many more. The monetary price is zero, and consumer surplus is very high. However, the figure I shows that the social media isn't free. Users don't pay monetary price, but they pay by spending their time, giving attention, and sharing their personal data and information. These are called effective price. Users make non-monetary payment, which reduce consumer surplus. The use of social media also has caused users spend hours on unproductive activities. Internal research of Facebook shows that heavy use of Instagram has linked to negativity, body image, and depression among teenage girls. Next slide, please. Do you make informed decision on social media? Minute per day in 9 years, users are so addicted that 72% who try to reduce social media spend time 54% were unsuccessful. In social media, platform knows more information user while user don't know how their information are used. Yes, there is information asymmetry, so decision of user does not reflect their true performance.
Okay, so today we will evaluate how government should regulate social media platforms from an economic perspective. Social media has become one of the world's most important digital markets, connecting billions of users and creating enormous economic value through communication, innovation, and digital advertising. However, its current business model is primarily driven by advertising revenue. Since advertising income increases with user engagement, platforms are incentivized to maximize the amount of time users spend online rather than maximize overall social welfare. This creates an important question for policymakers. The Parliamentary Committee has already concluded that government intervention is justified, but it must satisfy three conditions. First, regulation must generate a net welfare gain, meaning that the social benefits outweigh the cost. Second, it must not force major platforms to leave the market because millions of users still derive genuine value from these services. Finally, the intervention must be proportionate, addressing the specific market failures without unnecessarily restriction innovation or competition. Therefore, our objective is to identify the most economically efficient policy that improves welfare while preserving the benefits of social media. Okay, next slide. Okay. So before proposing a solution, we must first understand the problem from an economist's perspective. In this market, users allocate scarce resources such as time and attention to consume online content. Platforms allocate resources such as algorithms, data, and capital to maximize advertising revenue, while advertisers purchase their attention to reach consumers. The government's role is to allocate regulatory resources to maximize overall social welfare. The primary market fear is the negative externality. Platforms receive the private benefits of higher engagement through increased advertising revenue, but they do not bear the wider social costs created by the excessive engagement. These costs include poor mental health issues, misinformation, addiction, political polarization, and reduced productivity. As a result, the marginal social cost exceeds the marginal private cost, creating overconsumption and deadweight welfare loss as illustrated in the diagram. Diagram, please. Okay, so three additional market failures reinforce this inefficiency. First, information asymmetry exists because users often do not understand how algorithms personalize content or how their data is collected and used. Second, behavioral biases, such as default bias and present bias, make users more likely to remain engaged than they would be under fully rational decision making. Finally, large platforms possess significant market power due to network effects and high switching cost, making competitive pressures insufficient to correct these problems. Together, these market failures provide the economic justification for government intervention and form the basis for evaluating the four policy options.
So our first solution is about the fact that platforms just don't personalize what consumers see. They personalize it by default, and that matters because like default changes how consumer uses and how much they actually want to use it. So our diagram shows that two different demand lines. The top one, the default demand, shows how much engagement shows when the personalized feed is automatically on, and the bottom one is the real demand if no biases are made. So since it costs platform almost nothing to serve more content, the market just settles at a high price, causing a welfare loss, which is also known as the internality. So instead of the lower one, QS, which is basically what people really want, our option B eliminates that internality, producing at an optimal output. Next slide. This chart shows that the Meta's 2023 numbers, which is $68 in the high average revenue per unit market and $4 in low average revenue per unit market. So basically, it shows a drop in the engagement from the policy. It's hardest when there is a thin margin, when the margin is already thin. On demand side, what happens is 72% of user already says that they tried to cut back and they couldn't. So our opt-in forces come in handy here. So the opt-in forces, what it does is basically it shows what you're agreeing to rather than setting a set biased platform. The reduction is real and it helps to uh, correct the welfare loss as well as correcting the consumer sovereignty as well.
So, well, talking about attention levy makes platforms internalize the cost to create. Our second proposal is an attention levy, a tax on platform as revenue scale to average daily time of platform. So right now, platforms bear none of the cost of that they capture the harness entirely external. This levy makes it internal. Tune your algorithm for more engagement, pay more tax. Revenue is influenced for digital literacy and mental and fund. And this is not hypothetical. Maryland has run a version of this since 2021, taxing global ad revenue for 2.5% to 10% for large platforms. And this levy changes the incentive to speed up banning the market. So moving to the next slide, here is a diagram. The in the diagram, left side of the center, 2S, the socially optimal quantity states where the price reflects the true social cost, and the right side of the center is QM, where the market is today. Because platforms only pay the private cost, not society, and that gap between MSC and MPC is the penalty and the living prices it in. And the upside is better design incentives and funded public services. And the honest cost is the tide that absorbs much of this to higher prices and tax to hard caliber. And Maryland owns version already hit a legal challenge in 2025. Moving to the next slide with targeted privacy rules, which improve transparency without eliminating the advertising. Our third uh, proposal narrows option A. And instead of banning profiling outright, we restrict only specific categories like health, religion, sexual orientation, and leave contextual targeting alone. So why not go further? We already ran that experiment, the EU GDPR, get close to full data minimization, and it backfired on the group we are protecting, like small advertisers and small ad tech firms. And ad category market constitution goes about 25% at the biggest platforms that had their own data came out. Paper it fixes the conflict of interest, but in practice, the FTC took 5 years time to break up Meta and lost in November 2025. The court found no current monopoly, so no divisions that happened. And even when a monopoly was proven in Google Ad case, divisions are still only proposed and year after release. So structural separation is slow, uncertain, and risky. Hence, we reject it and recommend the Levy Plus targeted privacy rule instead. So further, I would like to comment and
Next slide, please. Can we have the next slide? Looking at the matrix, option B performs the strongest overall, improving allocative efficiency by correcting behavioral biases with minimal market distortion. Option C complements this by internalizing negative externalities, aligning marginal private costs with marginal social costs. Meanwhile, limited option A plays a supporting role by reducing information asymmetry, although its impact is more limited. In contrast, option D is the least effective due to its high compliance cost and reduced dynamic efficiency. Therefore, a hybrid approach generates the greatest net welfare gain, as it targets multiple sources of market failure simultaneously. The recommended policy is to implement option B through a chronological default to reduce status quo bias. Option C via an attention levy to internalize external costs, and limited option A by restricting sensitive data use to improve transparency. Option D should be rejected as it risks market distortion and reduces innovation. However, there are limitations. These the effectiveness of the tax depends on accurate calibration. Enforcement requires strong regulation, and policies must be regularly reviewed. Overall, rather than breaking up the platforms, this approach corrects the underlying incentives during market failure, preserving innovation and consumer choice while maximizing